I still remember the morning everything changed. It was a Saturday in late September when the golden light comes through the kitchen window just right. I was standing at the stove making pancakes the way I had for 32 years of marriage. My wife Ellen was sitting at the table with her coffee, and that look on her face, you know the one? When your partner of 3 decades wants to tell you something, but they're choosing their words carefully. I flipped a pancake and waited. That's something you learn after all those years together. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just wait. Ellen took a sip of her coffee and said my name, Robert, just like that. Soft and kind like always. Then she told me about her friend Susan, how Susan had been going through a difficult time after her divorce, how she was lonely and struggling and needed somewhere to stay for a while. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. My first thought was about our quiet mornings, our routine, the way Ellen and I had finally gotten our house back to ourselves after the kids grew up and moved away. We had just started to enjoy the peace and quiet, but then Ellen reached across the table and took my hand. She said something I'll never forget. She said that kindness costs us nothing but means everything to the person who receives it. She reminded me of when we were young and starting out, how her parents had let us stay with them for 6 months when I lost my job at the factory, how that generosity had saved us. I turned off the stove and sat down next to her. I looked into those eyes that had seen me through good times and bad, through raising 3 children and burying both our parents, through job losses and health scares and all the beautiful, ordinary moments in between. I said yes. Of course I said yes. Susan arrived on a Tuesday afternoon with 2 suitcases and eyes that looked like they'd cried themselves dry. She was about our age, maybe 58 or 59. Her hand shook a little when Ellen hugged her at the door. I took her suitcase upstairs to the guest room, the one that used to be our daughter Catherine's room. Those first few days were awkward like you'd expect. Susan was quiet. She'd apologized for everything, for using too much hot water, for taking up space in the refrigerator, for simply existing in our home. It broke my heart a little every time. But Ellen had this way about her. She'd always had it. This gift for making people feel like they belonged. She'd invite Susan to help with dinner. Not in a way that felt like a chore, but like a collaboration. Like her input mattered. They'd stand at the counter chopping vegetables and talking quietly. Sometimes Susan would even laugh. I'd watch them from my chair in the living room, pretending to read the newspaper. But really, I was watching my wife work her magic. The magic of simple human kindness. One evening, about 2 weeks after Susan moved in, I came home from my part-time job at the hardware store to find something unexpected. Music was playing. Not loud, but present. Frank Sinatra, I think. And there was Susan in our kitchen dancing by herself while stirring something on the stove. She saw me and froze. Her face went red with embarrassment. But I just smiled and asked what she was making. She said it was her grandmother's recipe for beef stew. She wanted to make dinner for us as a thank you. Her voice was still uncertain, but there was something else there too. A tiny spark of life coming back. We ate that stew together at our old wooden table, the one Ellen and I had bought at a yard sale when we first got married. Susan told us stories about her grandmother, about growing up in a small town in Pennsylvania, about the dreams she'd had as a young woman, dreams that life had slowly worn away. Ellen listened with her whole heart the way she always did. And I listened too, really listened, not thinking about what I'd say next or checking my watch, just listening to another human being share their story. The weeks turned into months. Susan got a job at the library downtown. She started smiling more, started leaving her room without that apologetic hunch in her shoulders. She'd join us for our evening walks around the neighborhood. She'd offer observations about the changing leaves or the neighbors' gardens. Small things, but they mattered. One Sunday morning, I was back at my usual spot making pancakes. Ellen was at the table with her coffee, and Susan came downstairs in her bathrobe, looking more relaxed than I'd ever seen her. She poured herself a cup of coffee and sat down next to Ellen. They started talking about some book they were both reading. I stood there at the stove listening to their easy conversation, and something hit me. This was the gift Ellen had been trying to give me all along. Not just helping a friend in need, but the gift of remembering what really matters. The gift of opening your life to someone else even when it's inconvenient. The gift of being part of something bigger than your own comfort. See, when you get to be my age, you start thinking about legacy, about what you'll leave behind. And I realized standing there that morning that the best things we leave behind aren't things at all. They're the moments of kindness. The times we said yes when it would have been easier to say no. The times we made room at our table for someone who needed a place to belong. Susan lived with us for 7 months. When she finally moved into her own apartment, she cried and hugged us both. She said we'd saved her life. But the truth is, she'd given us something too. She'd reminded us what our marriage had always been about. Partnership, kindness, making the world a little bit softer for the people around us. That was 5 years ago now. Susan is doing well. She's got a good life. She comes over for dinner every few weeks. She's part of our family now in the way that chosen family becomes even more precious than blood. Sometimes Ellen still gives me that look sometimes. The one that says she wants to tell me something. And I still wait because that's what you do after 37 years together. Last month she told me about another friend who needed help. I didn't hesitate this time. I just said yes. Because that's the thing about kindness. Once you really let it in, it changes you. It becomes part of who you are. And that, my friends, is the greatest gift of all. The gift of becoming the kind of person who says yes. Who makes room? Who understands that love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice you make every single day. Ellen knew that all along. She always was the wiser one. And I'm grateful every day that she chose to spend her life teaching me what really matters.